Fox Sports 1 is in a new era, an era without Skip Bayless. And dare I say, it is my turn because Skip Bayless is now like me on this podcast again, even though I am in collaboration with the one, the only Voltage Live, and we may have some restrictions in terms of curse words that we can use, and I'd rather not curse on the internet if I can help it, just to be professional. A lot like what Skip Bayless is doing now with his podcast. I have 3 rings. And obviously, I think the dream for people 20 years ago was, to get into TV, to get into ESPN. Then Fox Sports 1 started. And really, ever since 2015, when Howard made the move to FS1, you had guys like Skip Bayless, Chris Broussard come over to FS1. And I think FS1 has established themselves as sort of the football giant. I think Fox is now more known for football than any other network, including NBC, CBS, and ESPN, because Fox not only, builds their Saturdays around college, their Sundays around the NFL. They build now their Friday nights around college football with SmackDown moving to the USA Network. Not only that, but they have a show now that replaced Skip Bayless's spot at FS1 called The Facility with Chase Daniel, James Jones, Shady McCoy, Emmanuel Acho, that is 4 former football players turned media members, obviously. So, with all that being said, listen, I am not gonna lie to you, and those of you that know, I've talked about this a lot. I talked about the drama that went down with Skip and Shannon Sharp. I talked about what the original Undisputed meant to me in my young broadcast career. I started high school when that show began on the air. And again, I would look forward to, holidays or days off of school where I would wake up at 9:30 a.m. in the morning. If I knew I was going to watch Undisputed, I would purposely get myself a Diet Mountain Dew because you guys all know about the Skip and Shannon Sharp Diet Mountain Dew bets. And I would sit there with my now passed away father, and we would watch Undisputed with a bottle of Diet Mountain Dew. And then, during the week when I would come home from school, I was able to, watch replays of Skip and Shannon. And obviously, I did so whenever I could, when I didn't have class in the morning, when I was in college. And these guys, in my opinion, have the greatest debate show in the history of sports television. I enjoyed Skip and Shannon a lot more than Stephen A. and Skip. I thought, believe it or not, even though the debates were sometimes very hardcore, I thought Shannon actually gave better points than Stephen A. And I thought they were more debates rather than screaming matches all the time. That was, of course, at the end until, Shannon Sharp started to get more popular than Skip with his Club Shay Shay podcast that I still do listen to, by the way. And Skip obviously said those hurtful things about Shannon when it came to Tom Brady, the DeMar Hamlin situation, their relationship implodes. And then Shannon leaves. He goes to ESPN with First Take. Skip comes back with a completely new cast, including Richard Sherman, Michael Irvin, Keyshawn Johnson. And then when we got to the NBA, your Rachel Nichols's, your Paul Pierce's. Uh, and obviously, the ratings took a hit, but I'll be honest, I didn't mind the show. Again, one of those people that have defended Skip Bayless from the beginning. I like people that say what they see, and they may sound like an idiot, and you may not like their takes, but again, admire what Skip did. He changed the TV industry forever, in my opinion. So I have been lost in the morning without Skip, in my ear while I'm working. And Skip did come back on Thursday, the Skip Bayless show, his podcast, and he talked about there being no restrictions in terms of what he can and cannot talk about. And of course, he used the example of the fact of Tom Brady, still looking to buy ownership 10% from the Las Vegas Raiders, how that would affect his NFL job. And the point was made in an article this week on Awful Announcing that Colin Cowherd of the Herd, of course, addressed the topic on his podcast, but was not allowed to address it on FS1, obviously due to the circumstances. What all this means is this. I do not think Skip Bayless's career is over. I think at McAfee, to his credit, though, sometimes I wonder how he is still employed by ESPN with how much he gets away with. I think Pat McAfee has created this space, and with the rise of the internet, and again, everybody can have a podcast. I mean, I'm sitting here with a webcam, a microphone, a computer, and a headset. That's it. And I am recording a podcast that's going to be uploaded to all audio platforms and YouTube to be presented to, almost 200 of you every Tuesday and every Thursday. The power of that in today's media is, for the lack of a better pun, if you will, undisputed. Anybody can do it. And I think that the fact of being independent and being able to share your opinions and not being on the national network is more prevalent than ever. I think it's going to change this industry forever. And I do think Skip can bounce back from it. The one thing I do want to discuss now is basically, in my opinion, FS1 has pivoted. They are no longer known for competing with ESPN. They are its own space. I talked about how they're really, buying in and running into the football aspect. You have now Breakfast Ball, which is basically, I find it funny because it's basically the Carden Show with Greg Carden, with Danny Parkins, the former Chicago radio host, which, to be honest with you, when I heard he was leaving Chicago local to go to FS1, obviously it's for a lot more money, but I was assuming that he was going to get the Skip Bayless time slot and they do maybe a similar show to Cowherd or with other rotating guests, that Danny would sort of have his own show and not be paired with Greg Arden, and then Mark Schwereth, respected former offensive lineman with the Washington Redskins at the time, the Denver Broncos, three-time Super Bowl champion, who is actually the moderator on that show, which again, I find it funny because it basically demotes Greg Curtin. Then you got the facility, which I already talked about, which its tagline is literally no debate or very little debate, more discussion. And they do a lot of breakdowns of the X's and O's. And it is meant to be a complete alternative from First Take because FS1, again, is throwing their hands up in the air, basically saying that Stephen A. and Shannon Sharp, to an extent, have won the war on this sort of hot takes debate culture, which you guys know I am also a part of because I do championship rings every Tuesday night. Tonight, 6 p.m. Eastern, with my good buddy Josh Unger. I'm having the time of my life debating that man, and you guys know I say it like Skip Bayless. I say it how it is. It's my turn, and I win every debate I'm ever in. I'm very competitive in that way. But I do think that now you take a look at it, and Colin Cowherd's contract with FS1 is reportedly up after the Super Bowl, which Fox does have this season in February. FS1 does need to retain Cowherd. I know there's all these articles out about Nick Wright being the face of FS1 and First Things First, which is a tremendous show, by the way. And I'm even enjoying Speak. I'll say that. Joy Taylor, Keyshawn Johnson, Paul Pierce, Michael Irvin, basically the undisputed reboot without Skip Bayless. I'm really enjoying Speak. Again, I think that this is the best iteration of Speak, and the show has kind of gone from Speak for Yourself with Marcellus Wiley and Jason Whitlock, and then it was Wiley and Cowherd, and then it was, Emmanuel Acho and Shady and, all these guys, and now obviously it's Joy, Key, and Paul Pierce. I think FS1, if they want to compete anywhere with PTI or around the horn or anything like that, they need to get that show some stability. Again, I think First Things First has provided stability in that 3 o'clock spot, but I think it was a bad decision by FS1 to basically punt on First Take, not get First Things First that shot. Colin Cowherd and Nick Wright now are sort of the faces of the network, but the media business is changing. And I think it's a reason why Colin Cowherd created the volume. It's the reason why he does his own independent podcast because he doesn't need FS1 at this point, in my opinion. He can leave FS1. He can do his podcast on his own terms. He can do his own radio show, from home on his own terms. And it's the power of the media. So this year, it's really the start of a new era. We just saw the NFL today on CBS, right? New era where you have Boomer Esiason no longer there, focused on radio. Phil Simms no longer there. Matt Ryan, J.J. Watt, two former players who recently retired, taking over that space. FS1, Skip Bayless out. End of an era. Colin Cowherd could be out soon. Skip Bayless now is independently shopping shows. He's on his own podcast, Unfiltered. And again, it's really inspiring when somebody like me, who say all you want, has admired Skip Bayless for his entire career for the way he believes in his takes. I don't believe in half the stuff Skip says, but you know what? He did a pretty good job at making me believe that what he says is true. And also, again, I just love the fact that he believes every word that comes out of his mouth, because I believe every word that comes out of my mouth. Because I believe truly, if you're developing a take or just saying something just for the audience or to be different, it doesn't come off as believable. And that's what I try to tell my co-host at Championship Rings, Josh Unger, all the time. So I enjoy covering this new media space with you. You know, we talked about the Raw going to Netflix, SmackDown USA, NXT on the CW, Joe Tessitore making his debut, obviously. So we are in a whole new era of everything. Cody Rhodes finished his story. 2024 is the year of a new era. It's a new era in sports media. Skip Bayless no longer on FS1. And I think it'll be real interesting to see what happens to not only Skip, but FS1 in the future. Does FS1 regret eventually not sort of replacing that Skip Shannon Sharp dynamic if the facility falters, like I believe it will? Like that clip from the Brands World podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Brands World podcast right here on YouTube.